All right, thank you so much. Good morning. The time is now 10:25, and I will call a Sewage and Water Board Plumbing Conference Committee to order. Special counsel, please call the roll.
Director Duplessis?
Present.
Director Barnes?
Here.
Director Pacho?
Here.
Director Sloss?
Here.
Councilmember King? Superintendent Nelson?
Here.
Ann Wilson?
Here.
Chief of Environmental Affairs? Mike Evans?
Here.
Director of Plumbing? Okay. And Renee Gonzalez?
Here.
Chief of Customer Service. Chair, we have a quorum.
Thank you so much, everyone. Considering the amount of material that we submitted for the committee to review, I would like to proceed with the presentation item regarding the proposed additions to the plumbing code and defer action items to the next plumbing committee meeting. May I have a motion to defer the action item? Thank you so much. It's been moved by Director Pacho, seconded by Director Barnes. All in favor?
Aye.
Any objections? Hearing none, motion carries. So now we'll move to our presentation item. We have 9 Hinkerson?
Henriksen?
Hendrickson, thank you so much. Infrastructure Project Manager will proceed now with our presentation. Thank you so much.
And before 9, this is our first Plumbing Conference Committee meeting in quite some time. And so Director Duplessis, you said you wanted us to all introduce
Yes.
the members.
So again, that was my sentiment. This is the first time for us coming together as a committee. I don't know that we all know each other, so I know we did have roll. I don't know if you were paying attention, but introductions are in order, if you don't mind. We'll start with Renee.
Renee Gonzalez, Chief Customer Service Officer for the Sewage and Water Board.
Thank you so
Steve
much.
Nelson, General Superintendent for the Sewage and Water Board.
Barnes, Director, Sewage and Water Board.
Michael Evans, Superintendent of Plumbing.
Diana Hendrickson, Infrastructure Project Manager for the backflow section of Sewage and Water Board.
Corin Washington, Environmental Lead for the Environmental Affairs Department.
Good morning, Ann Wilson, Chief of Environmental Affairs, Sewage and Water Board.
Tamika Duplessis, Board of Directors.
Yolanda Grinstead, Special Counsel.
Joe Pacho, Board of Directors.
Pocos Laws Director.
Thank you so much. Nye, please proceed.
All right, thank you all for being here today. I will be presenting on the proposed changes to the Sewage and Water Board's plumbing code. For today's meeting, I will go over what requirements for the backflow program, what the requirements are, and then we will move into what revisions we are proposing for Section 14 of the Sewage and Water Board's code to satisfy the responsibilities that have been put on us. So some of the responsibilities per the Louisiana Administrative Code, Title 51, Part 14, covering the responsibilities of water suppliers. As required by this code, each water supplier shall protect the water produced and distributed by its water system from potential contamination by ensuring compliance with the containment practices and maintenance/field testing requirements prescribed by this part or as otherwise directed by the state health officer. In other words, this requirement to administer and maintain a backflow prevention program is mandated by the Louisiana Department of Health. Besides requiring for public water systems to have a program in place, LDH also have a couple of other specific requirements that I will go over in detail a little bit later. You can also find this information on page 422 in the packets that I've given you of the LAC that you have in front of you. And right below that, we also have one of those requirements that the LDH has outlined as a bare minimum. And like I said, we'll get to that in a little bit.
The first page is 571, and then it goes down, huh?
It's a little bit out of order, and that's how it was given to me once upon a time. All right. So the first section of the proposed revisions will cover our definitions. There are 51 total definitions listed in this section. A little over 30 of them are specific to cross-connection and control. And I wanted to just clarify for you guys here in this meeting, cross-connection control and backflow prevention are fairly synonymous for this presentation. Cross-connection is more of a symptom, meanwhile the backflow prevention is the solution to that symptom. So if that's confusing in any way, let me know. All right, so any other of the other terms that are not listed in this part shall exclusively be adapted from the International Plumbing Code, IPC 2021. In order to administer this program in an effective manner, the Sewage and Water Board will retain the right to implement specific processes for the purpose of due diligence. We, as the water purveyor, will require access to customers' properties to be able to survey for potential hazards. Any individual that wishes to perform work related to backflow prevention in our parish will need to go through an approved training program, and these training programs are approved by the State Plumbing Board of Louisiana, so that is something that they handle. They will also need to register with the Sewage and Water Board's Plumbing Board, and they will need to register with the backflow section. And here is one of our more important bullet points. We will need the authorization to terminate water service if deemed necessary to protect the Sewage and Water Board's water supply from potential or actual cross-connection hazards. This is a requirement that was outlined by the Louisiana Department of Health when we had our meeting with them, and it is also listed in that Louisiana Administrative Code.
And for us that are new to this program, if you could define or explain in a little bit of detail cross-connection versus the backflow prevention, those two concepts.
Certainly. A cross-connection is any connection that happens between our drinking water supply, and any other source of water. So that can be, for example, a very common one is for residential use. You have an irrigation system that's hooked up directly to the water supply, right? If you have a backflow event and a rainy day, that muddy water can get sucked back into our drinking water, and it can go into that person's house, or it can travel down the street. So it's any source of contamination entering our waters due to a cross connection. Another common example is a fire line in a commercial building, or even in this building. That water sits for long periods of times, and if anybody's ever seen a fire hydrant being flushed, you know that those first couple of gallons of water is not something you want to drink, right? But that water sits there, and if you have a backflow event, a drop of pressure, it can back siphon into our drinking water, contaminating it, polluting it, making it unsafe for us to use. So backflow prevention, like I explained earlier, is more of the solution for this condition. They are mechanical devices that operate on check valves, and they close that path so that the water can only flow in one direction. So that is basically the premises for this entire program, identifying specific hazards around in our parish and implementing whatever solutions we need to implement in order to protect our drinking water. Any questions on that?
No, thank you. Thank you.
All right. So, much like I said earlier, the authorization to terminate water service if we find a hazard that is dangerous enough to the public health is vital for this program. We need to be able to protect ourselves and our constituents if we find something that's going to have a very, very negative effect on people's health. So next, we're going to talk a little bit about responsibilities for all parties. We're going to start with the customer's responsibilities. The customer shall be responsible for the elimination and or protection of all cross connections on his premises. So much like I spoke about a little earlier, what can those examples be? It can be an irrigation system that has in-ground sprinklers to someone's lawn. It can be a pool that has an autofill device and is directly connected to the drinkable water supply. It can be a commercial building that has a fire system. It can also be a commercial building that does, or an industrial building that has meat processing or any kind of chemical activities going on inside of it. There are quite a few different types of hazards that we need to be protecting against. The customer shall, at the customer's own expense, cost installation, operation, repair, testing, and maintenance of backflow prevention assemblies as required by the administrative authority. Sewage and Water Board is the administrative authority and the water purveyor, just to clarify. This part, the customer's own expense, is also clearly outlined in the Louisiana Administrative Code. So this should not be anything that people have questions about because it's already in the state code, it's in our sanitary code. If you own the device, if you have a cross connection on your premises, you own a device, take care of it. It is your responsibility to make sure that it works, to keep it up, or to install it if you have that cross connection on your premises.
I have a question.
Yeah.
Is that responsibility consistent with other states?
Yes.
Okay, so it's pretty uniform.
It is a fairly uniform. I've heard of other municipalities where they have very small rural areas where the county came in, bought everybody a backflow device and installed it, but afterwards the maintenance and repair and annual testing was on the customer, and if they ever had to replace it, that was also on the customer. But this is the norm for this country. So yes. The customer shall also maintain records for at least 5 years. Then those records include your annual tests, it includes any repairs that you need to be doing, and your initial installation. We also have that responsibility, so it's kind of a shared thing. The customer will keep track, we will keep track, everybody keeps track together.
What happens after 5 years?
After 5 years, hopefully you'll hang that up on your wall and get more tests done.
And it's ongoing, so your
Oh,
5 years
I got it. That was
keeps
a stupid
moving.
question,
Yeah,
Mine just failed, actually. I just had
Yeah.
to check it, so I gotta get a new one.
I will mention that any and all assemblies have to be tested every year. So we have an annual test that you keep track of. And that is part of our responsibilities too, to keep track of that for the customers.
How much did that cost?
The installation or the tests?
Yes.
In our parish currently, since we have started this program and we've been fairly on top of it, those prices sit around $150 to $400, $500. It can be fairly expensive, and it is a problem that I'm trying to address here.
Is this for residential?
This is for everything. There are,
Ours was 200, we got a bunch of people in the neighborhood to do it.
yeah, no, I've heard of some that had a very smart person that had a contract with the HOA and gave a set price for everybody, which is smart. Up in St. Tammany, for example, you have a guy that's called the $50 test guy, and it's just like it sounds.
I used to have one in Oregon and it was $50.
Yep.
Yeah, the testing every year.
So that is something that I'm working on towards trying to get more general testers in, and I'm gonna go over the difference between a plumber and a general tester so that we can kind of drive these prices down a little bit, because it is something that they have to have, and currently the plumbers are very aware of that. So
How do people know about it?
we send out letters, notices saying, hey, you have to have your assembly tested. It's been a year, you need to get your annual test together.
Thank you.
Moving on to the plumber's responsibilities. As mentioned previously, to be authorized to do work in Orleans Parish, plumbers and general testers, and I'll go over this now. A plumber is somebody that has either a master plumber license or a journeyman license. They are a professional within that branch. A general tester is somebody that has gone through a 40-hour general testing class, backflow testing class. They are only authorized to do testing. They cannot install, they cannot repair, they cannot do anything except for test that assembly. So that's your difference there. These plumbers and testers will need to register with the Sewage and Water Board's plumbing department, as well as the backflow section. So they will come down to the plumbing department and get their work or authorization to do work in Orleans Parish. And then they will usually send me an email and say, hey, I would like to start doing backflow testing or backflow work in Orleans Parish. They have to get signed up with our software. And with our software, they upload their state plumbing license, their WSPS, which is Water Supply Protection Specialist endorsement. If they're general testers, they will upload their backflow certification. All of those have due dates on them, and so we will put those in our system. The system keeps track of the due dates, and they will also upload their liability insurance. Like, we keep track of that due date again. So if you are in my program and you are on the approved plumbers list, you are up to date on all of your credentials, you have your liability insurance, and you are authorized to do work in Orleans Parish. Any type of non-compliance may result in revoking or suspension of local registration. Due to us having this software that we work with, it is fairly easy for us to suspend any tester or plumber that's not abiding by the rules that we set forth for them. It is as easy as me suspending your ability to apply for a permit and then removing you for that approved plumbers list. And the approved plumbers list is something that's available to the general public. It is also on our notices for them to go to, and that's where they're going to find, for the customer to find their plumbers or testers so that they can get the work done. Any questions or any of that? No? Okay. All right. Finally, what are our responsibilities as water purveyors and the administrative authority? Well, we are tasked with serving all of the existing premises, all 140,000+ water accounts, including the building plans or new buildings. So that's what we're currently doing. We are currently serving mostly commercial buildings because that's where you have the greatest chance of having a cross connection. Most residential accounts will not have one unless they have an irrigation system or a pool. And we will afterwards inform the customer of any corrective action that is deemed necessary. So if we come to a building, let's just say it's a hotel, we find that they have an unprotected fire line. Once I've concluded my survey of that area, the customer will receive a notice in the mail saying, you need to install this device on your fire line because it's a hazard. On that notice, they will also be provided with a pathway on how to find that approved plumbers list so that they can get and find so that they can hire the plumber that they need to hire to address this hazard. We will also maintain records of all cross-connection hazard surveys, the installation of any assemblies, the testing of any and all assemblies, any of the repairs of all backflow prevention assemblies installed in the parish. So that's where our software really comes in and helps us out, because everything is linked to Aqua Resource. The plumber will go in, apply for a permit to install this fire line assembly. Once it's been installed, the customer will receive a notice saying, hey, thank you for doing that. That was very nice of you. And in a year or 60 days out from that year being done, they will get another notice saying, hey, it is now time for you to test your device. Your annual test is coming up. We are also tasked with enforcing this code to make sure that we have the compliance numbers that we want to achieve. And that is perhaps our most important part of this. It's partially because we want to keep our drinking water safe, right? But it's also so we can satisfy the requirements from the LDH, which are fairly easily outlined. So I wanted to go over some of the different backflow prevention assemblies. And once you started seeing these, once you've looked at these ones, you realize that they're everywhere. Everywhere you go, you're like, all right, that is a backflow device. Now I know what that is. But the first bullet point here is the air gap. This is the single most effective protection technique against backflow, right? Much like it sounds, an air gap is merely a space of air between an inlet pipe and a receiving pipe. So, due to gravity, you should not have any problems protecting yourself against backflow if you have a minimum of a 2-inch air gap in between your receiving pipe and your inlet pipe. Cannot flow backwards. The step down from that is the reduced pressure backflow assembly that you see there in your top right corner. This device functions with 2 shutoff valves, 2 independent check valves, and then in the middle you have a relief valve. This device protects against backflow, back siphonage, back pressure, contaminants, and pollutants, high hazards as well as low hazards. So it is very well used in hospitals and funeral homes and the likes, because it is the highest level of mechanical pressure protection that you can have. Next is the double check valve assembly. This one is widely used for places of incarceration. It is mostly used for fire lines, and that's what's going to lead me into the double check detector assembly. But for a fire line, this is what you need to protect yourself. It has 2 independent check valves, protects against back pressure, back siphonage, and pollutants. And the difference between the double check valve assembly and the double check detector assembly is that bypass that you can see there with a meter on it. So here in New Orleans, we have a lot of unmetered fire lines, and in order to detect leakage or illegal usage, you have that bypass around it with an additional backflow preventer on it and that meter so that you can detect those smaller usage that might come from a leak or illegal use. Last but not least, you have your spill-resistant pressure vacuum breaker. And for those of you who have irrigation systems, you've probably seen this one. And that's where its main use is. It's irrigation systems, it's pool systems. It protects against contaminants and back siphonage, but not back pressure. That's why they want you to not have any shutoff valves downstream of this one. But it is very widely used for residential accounts. Lastly, as we're coming to a close of this presentation, I wanted to go over the enforcement techniques that we're trying to put in place. The customer's non-compliance may result in late fees or disruption of water service. This is a very much of a last resort for us. Since we are still in our first year of having this program in-house, we have opted to educate our customer a lot this year. And so no one's received any late fees or a disruption of water service based on non-compliance with this program. Instead, we have visited a lot of people. We've gone out and talked to them, explained to them what the program means and what their responsibilities are as a customer. And most of the non-compliance that we've been met with has not been malicious. It's been lack of knowledge. But some of the non-compliance situations that we might face is refusing water purveyor access to premises. This is actually already listed in the sanitary code, and the solution for that is for them to have that reduced pressure principal assembly installed for containment of that entire property. So you put it right by the meter. That way we know that, okay, our water is protected against whatever you have on your side. Failure to install required backflow protection, failure to submit an annual test report, or bypassing of a backflow prevention assembly or method, which has been required by the administrative authority. We haven't had that happen. We haven't had that many instances of anybody bypassing a backflow preventer, but it has happened. So some of the steps that we have taken, and we've outlined this in our enforcement response plan, is obviously, and we're mostly just doing the first part of this, but it's documented phone calls or informal discussions. Like I said, I don't think I've had a single person that has maliciously said, we're not going to comply, once they understand what the program is about and that it's a matter of, public health. Most people just want some education to go along with it. But the next step is a warning notice, a notice of violation, the notice of penalty, show cause hearing, and as a very, very last resort and only for high hazard would be an interruption of water service. As I stated previously, most of this is just lack of education. We have issued a couple of warning notices, but they are not followed by a fine because most of the time the customer takes care of it as soon as they get notified of it. We've also had some issues with the plumbing committee, but the plumbing community being a little overwhelmed by this program. We're rolling out pretty hard because we kind of have to. And so currently we have 6,000 assemblies that needs to be tested every year. So I think there's a little bit of a lag between what we need them to do and how many plumbers are actually available to do this job. We're getting more and more plumbers and testers every day. And that is part of my goal also, to kind of open up the general testing aspect of it to more people, because to be a general tester, like I mentioned, you only have to take a 40-hour course and have liability insurance, and then you can go out and test, which is what most of the program is going to be about, submitting those annual tests. Customers will obviously have the right to appeal these enforcement actions if we end up taking further steps, and they will be given the opportunity to present a defense to the outlined charges. Our goal is not to, nail anybody. It's to protect our drinking water, and I'd rather have a well-educated customer that wants to do this than somebody that's mad that we're making them do it. But yeah, if anybody has any questions.
Yeah, the annual test report So I'm a customer.
Mhm.
The tester, comes to my property, tests my backflow, device. It is the tester who submits the information to the water board, right? It is not the
So,
customer.
yeah, so the process is as following. If you get a letter and you said, hey, your irrigation system needs to have a test done on it to do for its annual test, you will go online onto the approved plumbers list, or you can call us and we'll send you that list. And you will hire a tester or a plumber to come out and do the test. The tester or plumber will apply for a permit to come and do the test, so I'm already aware that this is about to happen. And once they've gotten that approved, they will go out, do the test, and yes, they will submit that test directly onto our website, so I can see basically every step of the way. The customer also has access to this website, so they can also see, okay, my plumber has submitted a permit application, or, okay, my plumber already uploaded my test. I can download a version of that test, or I can have the plumber send me the version of the test as well.
Why do I have to keep it for 5 years if you have it?
That is what is written in the code, and for the code, most people, a lot of the municipalities are not using a wonderful program like we are. There are some that still uses an Excel sheet to keep track of their backflow program. So for what's written in the code, it is required for you as a customer to keep track of it for 5
I could
years.
always download it from you guys.
You
I
could,
don't really have to keep it.
yeah, no, you
Just
could.
thinking about the way I operate, I don't know.
Queens Parish, you definitely could. But if somebody would come in today and say, can you give me 5 years worth of test reports? I could only give you one, right? Because I've only had this program for 1 year.
We transferred this program from a consultant to in the Sewage and Water Board, and it's in the Environmental Affairs Department. So we have a number of our staff that are certified testers and a testing board assemblies. We also have this software that allows us to collect that plumbing fee so that it is directly, the plumber or the tester is paying a plumbing fee, permit fee to the Sewage and Water Board, and then they can instantaneously, submit their test, and then they also pay a fee for the installation. So we're seeing more of coordination between those permits and the actual work being done. So that is a very good thing.
And bringing it in-house was more cost-effective as well.
Sounds like a good program.
Properties with irrigation systems and pools registered with the Sewage and Water Board? I mean, how do you know?
That's where the survey aspect comes in, that when we're surveying all of these 140,000 accounts, we'll find your irrigation system, and then we'll send you a notice about it. There are also certain accounts that has that irrigation list already, because they have a separate meter just for the irrigation. So that is a little bit of a giveaway.
I didn't realize.
So we're cross-checking the billing records for those types, pools and irrigation systems and fire lines. And then we also do that physical survey of all 140,000 accounts. And we inherited some of those records from the previous contractor, but we're going back to verify all that information. And those physical surveys have to be done every 5 years of your system.
So even though you're prioritizing the accounts where it's more likely,
Yeah.
you still have to, at
Well-
some point you have to come to my house.
I have to come to your house at some point.
Yeah.
It's all right. Most of the time, we just look in your garden and see if you have an irrigation system. But yeah, that is, we have to go through all 148,000 accounts every 5 years. But we're starting with the commercial ones because that's where most of the hazards are. A lot of downtown wandering about.
And the most important thing, we've given you a lot of information of the changes in Section 14, and it's page after page, section after section. But the most critical one that I'm not sure that we can have the full board approval this month is that we do not have the authority to terminate water service for imminent danger to our water supply. and that is the one requirement that LDH, Louisiana Department of Health, has already noted when they did a sanitary survey of the Algiers water plant. So I don't know if this committee could approve that one change.
So the committee will, because we have such voluminous documents to review, we will schedule another committee meeting next week, but we wanted to give you all time to digest the material, get the presentation, and then digest the material. We'll have a meeting next week to be able to approve the ordinance, your amendments, including the ability to terminate water services as well. But we wanted to give the committee, we know you just got the information, but we wanted to give you time to actually review all the material. And if you have any questions when we meet next week, you can ask those questions and we can move for approval of the entire package.
And we're open for what type of format to go through each section, and I don't know, 10, 15 pages of changes, or if you want to review it and then ask us specific sections where you would have a question, because it would take us a while to go through the entire document.
And that's why we decided to do a presentation. Plus it's
presentation.
adopted a presentation today so that you all, the committee members, can review the information. And if you have specific questions on the information that was presented today and the packet, then you can come back next week and ask those specific questions, and then we can take the vote.
Can you specify in an email to everybody what you're expecting us to review?
Yes, yes.
Like where these changes are, so that we can.
Finished?
Any additional questions? No. Thank you very much for the presentation, very concise and very informative.
And there are no public comments?
No public comments? If that's the case,
Move it.
I'll entertain a motion for adjournment.
Moved.
Second? Second. All in favor? Carries. Thank you so much.
Thank you.